Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I am joined here by my dear friend and teacher, Daniela, and welcome to Rooted Faith. This event, this session is all about what I call befriending the world amidst global change. And I'm going to be diving into what this means and what rooted faith means, what rooted faith feels like in connection to how we are in relationship with the collective, with the world at large, also maybe with our culture and the cultures around the world. So we're going to be giving attention and presence to a very like a big perspective of the world. And part of my intention here is to share perspective from the Akashic Records, which is a practice of seeing things, viewing things, feeling things from a perspective of so many things, but from a perspective of levity, of connection, of compassion, of least resistance, ultimately of the love. And with, my individual perspective, I come to this with humility, with knowing that I am just one person, but I feel that this will resonate with whoever it's meant to resonate with. And we will begin. So, a little bit about how we'll flow with this today. Basically, I will be sharing from a channeled state about what rooted faith is and about how we can relate to the world, how we can relate to humanity as a whole. And then I will be transitioning and handing the space over to my dear friend, Daniela Gill. And she will also be providing a transmission from a channeled state about this topic. And I want to introduce Daniela Gill. She is someone that I've known for a handful of years, and she is the one that has introduced me and taught me, initiated me into this vast, beautiful world of the Akashic Records throughout the years. I cannot say enough amazing things about her. If you have been in her presence, you can feel it's just like a whole experience to be in her presence. And she is also an international spiritual leader, sharing her gifts throughout the world, all over the world, from the Akashic Records, and has a beautiful psychic gift like no one else I've ever known. So thank you, Daniela, for being here. Welcome.
Thank you, Stephanie. I am so happy to be here with you. I love that you are sharing this event and that you're sharing your Akashic channel with everybody who's tuning in with us. And thank you for all of those beautiful words. So appreciated.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is always such a pleasure to create with you. And when I was intuiting and bringing down this vision and this topic here, you came to the forefront of my mind so strongly because, and you can speak to this from your experience, but from how I have perceived you, I feel like you, well, are one very empathic towards each individual and also towards humanity as a whole, and have a keen sense of the direction that we're heading and the nuances and what the heck is happening, you know?
Mm.
And I feel like you've gone through a lot of chapters and evolutions of how to be in a healthy relationship with humanity and with our own individual roles within humanity as a whole. So I am so, so, so excited for everyone to hear about her reflections and her perspectives on this. And yeah, so next I want to just in terms of a little bit more framing as to why I'm choosing to um, share perspectives on this topic is one, because I have now lived, with how young I am, I have now lived through, you know, the pandemic that happened a year or so ago, that was happening for a few years and is still it still has repercussions on us. And just how even this year and every year building up towards this, I have become increasingly more and more aware and um, affected by just these sort of uh, explosive events that happen all over the world, whether it be through natural disaster, whether it be through civil unrest, whether it be through full blown out war. There are uh, just these like blips in time that have really made me question just why those kinds of things happen. And that seem like sometimes such a contrast to, the times in my life where I feel really rooted, really clear, full of love, like there's so much abundance around me. And yet these things are happening in the world, and it brings up these questions as to, you know, I might individually be doing well in a moment, but if the rest of the world isn't cohesively doing well or doing quote unquote good, that there is still more work to be done in a sense. And I question like what I can do, what is there to do? What can I do? And to be honest, sometimes, and not as much now, which is why I'm sharing my perspectives on this. Sometimes, and with other people around me, I notice that there can be just this sense of like hopelessness, maybe despair, and this sense of maybe even like powerlessness as to what to do, um, what to bring, what to do to alleviate the suffering that still happens on the planet. And to start this off, I'm actually flashing back to a time recently in Peru, actually, where I was sitting in a plant medicine ceremony, and the curandero, he opened up the space for each and every one of us to share the deepest desires and questions that we had on our hearts as we were going into this, transformative experience. And um the first thing that came up to me was it was like the question of how can I help the world? How can I, contribute my gifts to alleviating the, for lack of a better word, just resistance that there is, the tension that there is on the planet and in many different ways. And in that moment, I actually felt a lot more uh kind of like down in the throes about it. And there was this sense of like, almost like, how can I save the world kind of thing with this, like, this, it was like laced with a little bit of despair that I felt.
Mm.
And the curandero looked at me and he said, honey, you do not have to save the world.
No.
You do not have to save the world. Focus on what you can do with yourself and with
Mm.
your sphere, with everyone that you come in contact with your beloved parents, with your family, anyone that you come into contact with. There is always an impact, and that always ripples out into the collective, into humanity, because we are just all connected. And that's that. And I was kind of taken aback by this, by his response, but also really, really alleviated of some kind of burden that I was placing on myself. And I realized that there was a different perspective to be had here. And there's a spot that we can maybe dive into or be with, where we can see the impact that we are making and and recognize that. So that is how all of this came to be, and how this conversation is kind of like nurtured by. And that's a little bit of my experience with things. And so with that, I would love to dive into Akashic channeling around this
Mm.
topic. All right. So wherever you are, I invite you to get into a comfortable position and allow yourself to come into a relaxed state. I also invite you to feel into any threads that resonate, and with anything that may not resonate, to just send it back to the earth and use your own discernment with all of this. I'm going to go into my own receptive state, and I'm going to speak the Akashic prayer out loud, and then I'll announce when the Akashic records are open. I'm opening both my own personal channel, and then I'm also going to tune into the Akashic records of the group of people tuning in to this video as well. And so we'll begin. Dear Spirit, support me in coming into an elevated and expanded state of consciousness so that I may become one with your perspective. Set aside the totality of my personality so that I may become a clear channel for your divine love, energy, and insight. Allow me to see myself and all of the listeners of this video through the light of the Akashic records. Allow me to know myself and the viewers of this video through the mind of God, and enable me to share all that supports their empowerment, healing, an embodiment of greater love. And so it is. Thank you, Spirit, for the sacred transmission. The Akashic Records are now open. So the first thing that I'm feeling is a sort of balance in energy in terms of feeling a sense of landing and rootedness on the earth, on the ground, as well as feeling this levity, this openness, and this spaciousness in our connection to the sky and in our connection to the ethers and to divinity. There's this beautiful sense of balance. And in a way, it feels like this is sort of the experiment of these times where we're all learning in our own way, in our own unique way, what balance means, what wholeness means, and what belonging means. There's a lot of different things that on our journey of exploring this, there's a lot of different things that we may come to project belonging onto. Maybe more so that our mind projects belonging onto, where they are things such as having enough land or having ownership over certain material things that are very much resources that we need for our livelihood. They can be also having certain relationships that feel like they give us a sense of belonging. It can be certain jobs. It can be certain emotions or sensations that might feel like belonging. And all of these different kinds of things are here to show us what belonging can feel like. But ultimately, there is a journey here into feeling a sense of belonging and remembering, actually remembering this because it has always been true and it is always there in our Dharma unique blueprint, and also in this, in and on this planet that we reincarnated on, that displays its beautiful cycles of alchemy and that displays natural law in the way that, for example, the seasons change, or in the way that certain elements like uh, fire and wood, come together and create a sort of alchemy. There's a way in which the earth is teaching us about ourselves and about sort of these natural and true ways of being, that our body, that our psyche, our emotions all kind of like mimic or reflect as well. And so we're all on this journey of belonging, but there is a true sense of belonging, a sense of belonging that no external thing can actually bring or completely give. It can only provide like a window into the actual true belongingness that is, it's both terrestrial belonging and divine belonging. Knowing and remembering our relationship to God, to source, and that we always belong there. We always have, and we always will, and we currently are. And also into this planet that, again, that we've reincarnated into for a reason, that we chose for a reason. And so all of this is to say that with this sense of belonging, we can tune into and cultivate what Stefanie calls rooted faith. And rooted faith is something that comes with this remembrance and that can be present in any cultural or worldwide um, manifestation of change, or any way that we view the world as going through like a portal of transformation, or where there is even destruction happening, which it can be hard on the human experience to it can be the hardest part about anchoring in rooted faith, but that it can be done, and that there's a way to have faith in this truth around our belongingness within divinity and also within the earth, while still facing and giving awareness and not ignoring what is happening in real time, what is happening on the ground, um, just what is happening in many different parts of the world, in or from many different perspectives. There's a question that, or like an inquiry or a practice that we can live into, where we can hold both. And what that looks like for me will look differently for you and each person individually. But it's something that can be a resource for our times. There can be this sense of maybe despair or powerlessness that comes from our own observation or awareness of hardship, war, natural disasters happening all over the planet. Because maybe we can't go directly into the eye of the storm. Maybe we can't, fly to the scene and help and physically be there. And so, you know, this is different than if you are actually like in one of these kinds of situations, and I want to just recognize that. But if you are not like physically in one of those situations, there are energetic ways that you can contribute to these um, kinds of transformations that are happening all over the planet. And that in the way that you contribute is also going to merge and be like in conjunction or in collaboration with people that are in different roles in these kinds of transformations. And so don't underestimate your role and your impact in the greater whole here. And again, one of these ways is by having rooted faith. And rooted faith starts with a feeling, it starts with receptivity to this energy of belongingness that I was speaking to. And it's the actions that stem from that rooted faith. Actions like creating or designing a life where you share your perspectives, your gifts, your services, your essence in relationships that you have around you, in how you show up to um, your job or how you show up to your visions, your creative impulses. There are so many ways in which it ripples out. And I'm thinking of what's coming through is this time when I was at a store. I was buying a sandwich. I was buying some lunch. And there was this man in line, and I noticed that he started to turn towards me and he sparked up a conversation with me. He was like, "Oh, I see you have a book there. What are you reading? Oh, like, what have you studied before? What do you do? How was your day?" And throughout his awareness and just his presence, my heart started to open where I wasn't particularly in that kind of state before. And I started to just kind of receive this really beautiful energy that he was giving me. And then I saw him turn to this other table with this beautiful family, and he told them something about me that was related to them in such a weird way because I didn't know them. But he found a way to thread a connection between all of us. And then all of a sudden, it was like, "Oh, it's my son's birthday." And then all of a sudden, we were singing them happy birthday. And just in that one sandwich shop, that small little sandwich shop, this man took he took the initiative of creating this sense of connection and wholeness in a really organic but palpable and amazing way that I then brought that energy to Christoph. And I saw the shift in Christoph's energy, who is my partner. And I was like giving him the sandwich. And so now our sandwiches were infused with all of this like beautiful energy and so on and so forth. That energy carries through, and it carries through into everyone that you meet. It ripples out past your past your, like human line of vision, past your own perspective, past what you can see. And so what's coming through is this message around trusting our impact, even if we don't directly hear about how we have impacted someone, or even if we don't directly, quote unquote, see how our energy ripples out. But it without a doubt does. It is, it's nature. It's nature. So I have some notes here also around other messages that I wanted to share when I was channeling around this topic before. I think the last leg of things here that feels relevant in terms of this topic before I pass it on to Daniela is uh, this this perspective around how everything that we see outside of us and that impacts the world on a big scale. Whatever is happening in the macrocosm is also happening in the microcosm. And and there are certain times where this perspective serves. And so I invite you to tune in to if this feels good for you to take on, because I've found that this is this can be helpful for different times in our relationship to the world. But there's a way in which the energy of like things that happen in the world, it ripples out to us, just like how we can ripple out energy to the world as well. When we're receiving energy from the macrocosm, we can use it in a certain way where it brings our awareness, our loving awareness, to ways that we might be ways or things that might be ending or composting within our own lives. Maybe certain transitions that we are having, and these don't have to be like obvious transitions. They can be psychological transitions of just things that are ready to change in our being. And they can also be reflections, or we can be led to reflect where in our lives we have smaller ways of, or maybe smaller opportunities to resolve conflict in our relationships outside of us, and then also in our relationships within ourselves. Because we all have a relationship with different parts of ourselves. We all have these different parts of ourselves. And these are things like, our inner child. It can be past versions of ourselves. It can be maybe like a higher self version of ourself that we feel into. And so the energy can be circulated in a way that is constructive in this way. And when we give awareness to something that is maybe unconscious, we are giving ourselves love. We are replenishing our remembrance of our sense of belonging. And again, that will ripple out into everyone around us. The last message here is around cultivating rooted faith before the world is what we feel like it should be, or before the world is it is a place where there is true unity and there is true cohesiveness and wholeness. We can have rooted faith before all of that actually happens, and we can release like codependency from needing the world to be a certain way in order to love it, in order to bring truth to it, our truth to it, in order to bring our awareness, our presence, our embracing of it. And this is akin to any individual relationships that we may have in our lives, such as with a parent or a partner or a friend or anyone like that. The practice here is maybe stepping into not needing someone, including the world as we know it, humanity as we know it, to be a certain way before we can play our part and recognize our impact and share ourselves and share our remembrance with it. So that is going to complete my share of this message around this theme of befriending the world amidst global change. I really hope that some of this resonated with you. And without further ado, I would love, love, love to first give gratitude to Source, to God, to my channel, for allowing me to be a vessel for these messages. And I'm just going to take a moment to close my channel here, and then I will transition over to Daniela. Thank you so much for listening. And now I'll go ahead and hand the mic over to beloved Daniela Gill.
Stephanie, that was so beautiful and brilliant. I love the way Akashic energy and insight moves through you. It was like such a healing balm, like such a soothing frequency and really insightful perspectives that came through. So I'm really happy that you're sharing here today with everybody who is tuning in. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Daniela. I'm so looking forward to what you have to share as well.
I'm going to take a moment to drop in as well and open my channel. Spirit, support me in coming into an elevated, expanded state of consciousness so that I may be one with your perspective. Set aside the totality of my personality so that I may serve as a clear channel for your divine love, insight, and guidance. Allow me to see myself and all who are present with us tuning in for rooted faith as we are seen in the light of the Akashic Records help me to know us as we are known in the mind of God, and enable me to share all of the communication and divine healing energy that would be most healing, most supportive to all of us at this time. Mm. And so it is. Thank you, Spirit, for this sacred transmission. The Akashic Records are now open. Mm. The first thing that I'm seeing is the way in which an internal state of peace, trust, love, compassion, allowance, acceptance. This state is the ultimate, it's the ultimate healing state in response to whatever may be happening in the external world. There is a common human tendency to react to external chaos, external wars, external problems, external issues, external experiences and circumstances that are not of our preference with more of the same. So it's like often the internal response reaction to war is more war. It's perhaps judgment. It's a state of internal division, perhaps a taking of a side, even if it's not taking the side of a specific country or a specific group of people, but taking the side against the ones that are doing the killing. And what's coming through is around how we inadvertently, unconsciously feed external negativity through our own responses and call it, like, I really want to be mindful with my words, but this is how I'm seeing it. I'm doing my best to place words to what I see and then calling it compassion, calling it empathy. Yet true compassion knows no bounds. True compassion is not, true compassion, when like truly embodied, is towards all. And there's a way in which everything that we are thinking, all of our emotions, everything that we feed within us, that we give energy to within us, within our consciousness, is a prayer. It's a prayer that we're emanating out towards the world. And it actually has impact. Our thoughts, our projections that have impact, and they can uphold certain world circumstances when we are responding to those world circumstances with similar types of energies, with like resistance, with judgment, with even something as seemingly innocent as ideas of like, this is bad, this is wrong, this should not be happening. These are all very healthy, normal, common human responses. Yet there are ways in which they can, in a sense, be weaponized and then projected towards a circumstance that then creates a resistance, which inadvertently feeds it and gives it energy. Meanwhile, the end of this external reflection of all the chaos that some of us are witnessing is an internal state of unity. And that is only created through a radical acceptance, through rooted faith, through a relationship with the divine, a relationship with God. Because these ways of being, these ways of thinking, these ways of relating to external circumstances that are able to create change on this planet and put out prayers for peace do require a higher perspective, because as long as we are swimming in the more common human perspective, we're going to be perpetuating more of what humanity has been living and experiencing and perpetuating for thousands of years, which is a lot of disharmony in our human relationships. I feel that befriending the world requires us to have a relationship with the divine, because in the cultivation of a relationship with divine, we begin to recognize and fully accept the benevolence inherent within this experience of life, inherent within our Creator, within God. And that's part of the reason why I love the practice of accessing the Akashic Records. It's because it allows us to perceive human circumstances and this human experience from a higher perspective. And I wouldn't go as far as to say it is the perspective of God, because the perspective of God is the culmination of all perspectives. God has given us complete and total free will. God loves us unconditionally. God forgives all. God offers grace towards all. God offers compassion towards all. And God is also, because we are made in his image, we are also expressions, extensions of God. So the perspective of God is the culmination of all perspectives. I don't feel that the human minds can fully comprehend that, but yet we can use the practice of accessing the Akashic Records to come into a state of consciousness that allows us to rise up from all of the chaos occurring here, all of the streams of consciousness around despair and hopelessness and pain in response to what may be happening in the world, and then helps us access a higher perspective, which then supports us in anchoring in possibility. By coming into Akashic Records perspective, we can embody possibility, we can bring in love, we can bring in peace, we can start to cultivate unity within, which requires a radical acceptance of all without. And when we are not accessing higher perspective, I do feel that we're more prone to repeating patterns. It's the Akashic Records that reminds us that everything is possible. And it's the Akashic Records that is equipped to show us a new way. And it's the Akashic Records that allows us to get to know the mind and heart and spirit of God, so that we can trust in the benevolence of this experience of life, and through that, befriend the world, come to peace around all that is occurring. I know that for me personally, when I am using my empathy in a way where if someone else is suffering, I come into suffering, that suffering depletes my energy. And in the depletion of my energy, in the closure of my channel, me as a conduit of support, of love, of energetic transmissions, of blessings for the planet, I'm cut off from the potential of my service. And I do feel that it comes from a form of codependence, like you mentioned, Stefanie, that has become prevalent on the planet, where it's like, oh, I respond to your suffering with empathy by me suffering. But if you think of like a parent holding their child as their child is throwing a tantrum or freaking out or going through their suffering. If the parent comes into deep suffering as well, they can't, regulate the nervous system and really hold a safe healing space for the child to come back to peace, to come back to their heart, to like really truly feel safe and to shift into another state, to experience healing, to experience being loved. The other visual I got was like the nurse that is going to be able to best serve and heal the injured soldiers is like a healthy nurse that's full of vitality that can work all day and night tending to injured soldiers versus an injured nurse. She would be incapacitated. And I feel like the effective empathy is the empathy that inspires heart opening, that allows us to recognize and feel the suffering of other people, the experience of other people in a way that inspires action, that inspires change within us out of love, not in a way that has us come into like endless anxiety or our own form of suffering or retaliation, resentment, like wanting to get back at people. That's not actually an effective way of holding the space. And I personally feel that that's my role. I also understand from Akashic perspective that we are all the way we are through divine design. And everybody has their role according to their divine design, according to how God has made them. And we can trust our roles. And there are people who are by divine design equipped to serve as warriors. And then there's me. And when I tune into my divine design, it's to continuously remain connected to the mind and heart and spirit of God to the best of my ability, and to serve with my love, to serve with my trust, to serve with my peace, and to every day be anchoring in that frequency on behalf of all of humanity. Offering my prayers to humanity, not from a place of judgment of what is occurring, criticism of what is occurring, or even developing my own stance on what should be occurring, my own political opinions. I feel like from Akashic perspective, we get to see that we don't really actually know anything. The mind can create stories, but we don't actually know what's going on. It's so nuanced, it's so multi-layered. There are so many different perspectives and agendas and traumas and egos involved. So for me personally, my divine design, that's not effective. And I'm sharing that because perhaps this resonates with you. Maybe that's not your role, your divine design either. And maybe it is to remain as this conduit of love, doing your absolute best to deepen into ever more peace and ever more trust so that you may be fully resourced to show up to the best of your ability for all of those around you, so that you may offer these transmissions of love, so that when you're fully resourced, it's like when we're fully resourced, our energy is powerful, it's palpable, our prayers are powerful. It's when we are abiding in love that we truly can pray for peace, can pray for love. When we are in resistance to a circumstance and in suffering, hopelessness, like all of that despair, our prayers don't match the frequency of God, because our God is one of love and peace and trust. And those emanations only create more of the same. I took some notes on something Stephanie said that I felt inspired in the moment to speak to.
I actually have a question if you're open to that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I really love um the perspective and the sense of being able to inspire change from a place of love and from a place of not being in resistance to something. I'm remembering it's like a quote or something from someone like um oh, it's someone so well known. It might be Gandhi, it might be
Mm,
Martin Luther King. It might even be like a famous saint, but it's the saying that is something like um it's something around the lines of not being in opposition to something, but instead just standing for what you stand for or valuing what you value without needing
mm,
it to be in opposition to anything or in resistance to anything.
mm,
That there's so much more potency. Yeah, just so much more potency in just being who you are and standing for what you stand for and um sharing what you are meant to share by your design and
mm,
just having it be that instead of instead of constantly just being in opposition to something or having resistance against something. So thank you for that.
mm,
And a question that I had is if you have or if you can speak to what it's like to inspire change from a place of love versus from a place of like, don't do that, or
mm,
that needs to not happen, or you need to do this, or from a place maybe of more resistance. What is it like to inspire from a place of love or to um, maybe de-armor someone's defenses and inspire
mm,
them to share, to present from their heart? Is
mm,
there something around that? And or do you have any personal experience
mm.
with that?
Amazing question. Let me drop into that. I feel like at the end of the day, we all just really want to be loved and to experience love. And when we offer love to another, or when we offer love to ourselves, love comes with acceptance. Love comes with forgiveness. Love also transmutes guilt and shame. Currently, a lot of people get caught in these karmic loops, these either internal battles or battles with others when there is resistance present, when there is guilt and shame present, when there's an oppositional energy present that like keeps us looping in whatever that dynamic is. But as soon as you bring love into it with love streams in consciousness, love automatically turns the oppositional force, the resistance, which perpetuates things, into acceptance, allowance, embracing. And through the very nature of love, the energetic structure of love, it enables transformation and it calls forth a meeting in that energy of love. And the example that comes to mind for me personally is in romantic relationship. If you've ever in the past tried to bring healing to your relationship or change someone or change yourself through criticism, through any sort of negativity, it generally doesn't work. What it calls forth is like, it usually brings forth like a resistance from the other. And it can actually have them block you from fully empathizing with you because it's perceived as like a threat, it's perceived as an attack, it's could be interpreted as I'm not good enough, like the energy of criticism, judgment, fighting against something. It generally doesn't work. It's not effective. And when our experience of someone else's behavior can be expressed from a vulnerable place of love, of acceptance of them as a human being, simply sharing around our experience within the relationship, maybe our experience of a behavior, but without blame, without guilt, without shame, like really embodying the recognition that people are doing the best they can, and that humanity has gone through a lot over the last like very long period of time, and a lot of the traumas, pains, limitations, flaws, like ways of relating, we've like inherited it from beyond just our ancestors. We've inherited it from like past lives and from just the collective human consciousness. There's a lot there that's needing to be transmuted and worked through. And with that awareness, we can let people off the hook for not being perfect. And then we can offer them grace, compassion, forgiveness, which offers a really safe healing space and tends to really inspire people. When you are offering someone safe, secure, stable love, generally over time, they will want to become the absolute best versions of themselves for you. Yeah, that was an example. I also used to be a nanny, and I remember like um, sometimes parents, they would have challenging relationships with the kids, and even challenging relationships with past nannies. But yet, if I came in with like really listening to the child and not taking the rebelliousness personally, not like fighting it, and instead seeking to understand where's it coming from, I found that I could create like an allyship, like a friendship and trust. It would take time, but over time, there would be more trust where the same difficulty that they would be, giving past nannies or the parents wouldn't show up so much in our relationship.
I love that so much. This
Mm.
I love that you bring in the experience of this kind of dynamic with a child when you were a nanny. I can also
Mm.
relate. I've also been a nanny before. And so, do you think that there's a way that seeing someone's innocence is like a key here in being able to relate from a place of love or inspire change from a place of love? Because I think that it's easier in some ways to do that with children because they're children and they're so young and they're small and you know but we were all children once.
Mm.
And sometimes I think about how maybe the phase of our world's evolution is in a younger kind of um, stage or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you feel around that?
Well, all of our perceptions of people, if we perceive someone as innocent, if we like relate to that aspect of them, we are projecting that onto them, which actually impacts how they show up in our presence. That innocence empowers us with patience, compassion, and seeing where they're coming from. And then that projection also allows them to rise up into your perception of them as ultimately innocent. And now when we have like, I'm thinking of, the example of a child that's had like a really difficult childhood, a lot of perhaps antagonism in their childhood, and then they grow up to be like more of like a delinquent child. If there's an adult that can hold a positive perception of them, that can be very transformative and very healing. I feel that we underestimate the power of our own consciousness and the way in which our thoughts and our perceptions are always projected onto reality and impact reality in some way.
Thank you so much, Daniela. This has been so beautiful to receive, and I feel like there are perspectives that can help others who are maybe just figuring out how to relate with the world, relate with humanity, and these things happening around the world um, from a different place, from a more maybe empowered place.
Mm.
So, do you have any last messages, insights, or reflections that you want to give before we wrap up here?
Don't underestimate the positive impact that you living your best life and showing up with so much love and presence and availability and service for all of those around you has not only on those around you, but the world at large. It has ripple effects that continue on out into infinity and eternity. Anytime you impact one on a very subtle level, you are impacting all. So that cultivation of love within, of peace within, that allows you to be so available for others and transmit this love to them, to like really be present for them and with them. It has healing impact on the whole of humanity. And I love that story, Stefanie, that you shared around how it's not your job to save the world. It's absolutely not. We can leave that to God. Like that's God's role, and God is saving the world through each and every one of us. But all we have to do is you just got to do you. And that's enough. You can let God take care of the rest and trust. And your faith in a future with peace, with more collective love, more collective unity, more collective joy, more collective play, more collective creative possibility. Your faith in that is supporting the anchoring of it in. It allows you to live it in your life. And then you serve as like an anchor for that energy, for that possibility. You inspire those around you. And again, that has ripple effects. Thank you, Stefanie. Thank you. Thank you. I feel complete. I'm going to take a moment to close. Thank you for all the insight that was shared today. May it all be integrated with ease and grace to serve our lives and the lives of all connected to us. And Akashic Records are now closed. Thank you, love.
Thank you so, so much, Daniela. I really feel the palpable energy of everything that you shared today. As always, it is an honor to share these prayers with you and to share them with all of you who are tuning in here. I hope and I will always support all of you through belief, through relationship here in your role in the grander scheme of things in befriending the world amidst all of the global change that is happening, amidst the transformation that um, we are going through, that we are living and experimenting with. And that concludes this video, this event. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I will leave information about Daniela's beautiful offerings for Akashic Record training and retreats, in-person retreats that she also does, as well as my own information and services down below for your support. And also feel free to share whatever landed for you, whatever was helpful for you, whatever you're receiving from this. And with that, I leave you all. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Daniela. Until next time, everyone.